Hi, Leslie. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to see you today. I love your work. Congratulations on 100 years of Warner Bros. What I love about your work is that through your documentaries about whether it's about your grandfather of Iwerks or ILM or the imaginary story, you've always been interested in telling stories of what happened behind the scenes. What behind the scenes stories made you want to tell the full story of the Warner Brothers now?
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to tell this story, right? I was pretty lucky to be asked to tell their story, and I think Warner Brothers is such a rich story with all the actors, the directors, the films, the business story that's inherent that takes you, that sort of is the narrative thrust that takes you through 4 hours. I'm a student of business and entertainment and innovation, and this had all that wrapped together, braided together. And so to me, to delve into 100 years was daunting, but it was exciting. And I'm just glad to be here in Cannes presenting it.
Yes, and I'm sorry I couldn't be here present today. I just got back this weekend, so we just actually, I missed you from a couple of days.
Oh, too bad.
If you could have been present, either involved in or just, watching from afar the making of a Warner Brothers movie, which one would it be and why? If you could just, I don't know, be like a fly on the wall, which one would it be?
That's a great question. I've asked other people myself. I think I'd choose Blazing Saddles because it's so outlandish and so crazy. I would have loved to have just been on the set with them debating what to record, what to say, how to shoot it.
Yeah.
I mean, the laughter, the fun of that, and the craziness would have been a blast.
When you think of Warner Bros., is that the first one that comes to mind for you?
No, the Warner Brothers logo is what comes to mind first, but I don't know. I think of the gangster films. I think of I think of the 70s movies that were really pushing the envelope. The early Dirty Harry films, the Clint Eastwood movies.
Yeah.
A lot of those kind of, Bonnie and Clyde. All the shoot 'em up films that were so just out there pushing the envelope were so good.
Absolutely. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of how many lives Warner Brothers touch, how many genres they help develop. For me, I grew up on I grew up on Harry Potter, but also on classics like A Streetcar Named Desire, Rebel Without a Cause.
Right.
So I think it's just part of the DNA as moviegoers and movie lovers. So that's just wonderful. New documentary shows that perfectly.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. It was tricky to winnow down the number of films that we could show. We actually showed a lot more than probably we anticipated, but it was just hard to not be able to illustrate a point without showing a montage of a number of films that did that, right? And then the goal was to really illuminate the films that people might have forgotten about by now or not ever know about by now, right?
Yeah.
That, to me, I wanted to really give an audience a real kind of, first person look behind the scenes of the studio, but also remind of the types of films that were courageous to make and bold to make and risky to make, right?
In Paris, even to celebrate the 100 years of Warner Bros., there's going to be a concert. There's going to be Warner Bros. Classics shown all over the city on the big screens, and I'm going to be able to watch and rediscover movies that I have never seen on the big screen because I don't know, I wasn't born or I was too young, like Blade Runner, and to me that's just priceless. So since they are re-releasing one of those movies on the big screen, which one are you the most excited to rediscover if you're gonna rediscover one?
Well, I spent quite a bit of time rediscovering Casablanca. That was fun, and to listen to the stories of that with some of the historians who spoke about it was really interesting, and just the impact that it had on the immigrants who were coming into America and what America meant on the world stage, and what democracy meant, and just what a great love story it was. We talk about the values that Casablanca had, that you're not always out for yourself. You do the greater, right? You make sacrifices, and those sacrifices are what help build this country, right? And so I think that film epitomized so many great values, you know, with risk and love and loss, right? So I would say Casablanca would be the film that best epitomizes the types of films Warner Brothers was known for.
You know, Warner Brothers is obviously the home of storytellers, and I don't think we can talk about storytelling right now without mentioning the strike in Hollywood. Obviously, something for them isn't working in the system. You know, they're not being treated fairly, and we media are both covering the strike as much as we're covering movies showcased at Cannes. And we're talking about your amazing documentary now, and on the other hand, the future of movies is very much a discussion at the minute, you know, with all the streaming services, movies going straight to VOD. How do you think Warner Brothers is paving the way for the next 100 years, taking all of that into account? And how do you think Warner Brothers will be able to keep this culture impact for 100 more years?
Well, I think Warner Brothers wants the best for everybody. And I think that they're doing whatever they can to make it fair for everybody. I can't speak for Warner Brothers on the strike or anything like that. But what I can say is that, you know, their approach now is about authentic storytelling and about getting voices to tell stories. And they want the best filmmakers in the business, no matter where they come from, anywhere around the world now. It's an international landscape. And those lessons have been learned through time, such as films like Selena, who, you know, a film that nobody had really done a story about a Latina actress or a Latina subject to that extent, with Latina star who garnered $1 million for her first, Jennifer Lopez, for her, you know, first breakout role. As Gregory Nava, the director, said, you know, telling the story of your village is like telling the story of the world. And I think that sentiment is what the executives at Warner Brothers today are all about. And I think, and I know that they're all about continuing to push technology, continuing to support authentic stories and authentic voices, but also to really make films that will have an impact. And when you look back on the history of Warner Brothers, those films, there's so many films that actually made a physical impact, a cultural impact, a political impact. And that's exciting to me, that you have an art form that can actually make difference in the world. And I've experienced that myself through my own films, that, you know, you make a piece of art and it can change lives. It can raise money. It can make differences. It can inspire somebody. It can inspire them to go to school. It can, you know, there's so many things that a good movie will do. And that's what Warner Brothers really, I know, is focused on.
And to follow up on this, I'm not one to think that people will stop going to the theater because of streaming platforms. They might stop going because movie tickets are incredibly expensive at the minute, but not because of streaming platforms. People love going to the theater. I feel like I'm home when I'm going to the theater. Are you worried for the future of movies and theaters, or would you say that this is just the continuity of an ever-evolving industry?
I think it's the latter. I think, you know, during COVID, I think everybody was scared that movie theaters are going to shut down. But as we saw, and you'll see in the fourth special, that the Elvis was a huge draw for audiences of all ages, right? Young and old. And that really helped to draw people back in after COVID. And I think that David Zaslav and the team at Warner Brothers are very focused on theatrical releases and are big movie lovers, big theatrical movie experience lovers, and that's the future. And I don't see that as a conflict. I do think that you know, films are expensive, but everything's going up. You know, Disneyland ticket prices are going up. I mean, everything's going up. So it's just the way of inflation. And, you know, everybody wants to sit in a dark room together and feel like a community and watch something together. And you don't get that at home sitting on your couch, you know. No. So
absolutely. And that's where the Cannes Film Festival comes from.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Cannes, Does it feel like a full circle moment to be here? Because I think that the first to showcase the Warner Bros. Documentary, because I think the first Cannes Film Festival was going to be in 1939, but it got canceled because of the war. I think they were going to showcase the Wizard of Oz, and now you're here introducing the 100 years of Warner Bros. How does it feel like for you? Is it a little bit surreal?
Well, it's funny. I didn't really think about that, but I do think that it's exciting because Warner Brothers has had numerous films in Cannes. Obviously, a lot of great filmmakers' breakout roles were here.
Absolutely.
And to me, to have the film here celebrating the 100 years is, a dream come true for me. And nor did I expect it. I mean, not every documentary can get into Cannes Film Festival. So I'm honored to be the storyteller and happy to be here.
I was thinking of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is a classic for Warner Bros. And this year we're getting a Willy Wonka Warner Bros. Prequel with Timothée Chalamet, and it's one of the most anticipated movie of the year, really. Would you say that this is also one of the secrets of Warner Bros. Legacy, that they always know how to reinvent themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I think reinvention is a big theme for Warner Brothers. I think they've reinvented themselves time and time again as a studio. Filmmakers have reinvented themselves. The stories of, Star is Born reinvented itself numerous times. I think that the old is new and new is old, and it's a respect, and they have a respect for the past. Enough time goes by and you get new technology that can enhance that brand or that film. That was, Willy Wonka is one of my favorite films, and I remember as a kid watching that, and to see what they're going to do now with technology and great story and great actor, it's just fun. But I also, I'm a big fan of new stories. As much as, we want to reinvent the old, I want to continue to see fresh stories out there because there's so many stories to tell.
Absolutely. And I want to geek out a little bit with you, because I think that taking a tour on the Warner Bros. Lot has to be one of the most significant experience in the life of a cinephile. Do you remember the first time you went and how you felt? Which part of the lot were you the most excited to see?
Well, I walked around the back lot when I was my first meeting at Warner Brothers for this project, and just had the opportunity to sort of walk around by myself. It was late afternoon, and I could, just that opening scene in the first special is basically what I felt that day. And the quietness of the back lot, there weren't a lot of people there. It was still sort of COVID-ish time frame, and it felt desolate, but yet I could hear the voices of these actors of the past. I could hear the clapperboard. I could feel the history of that studio as you walked through those facades, right? And it's just magical. It was magical, and I just thought, this has to be my opening. I have to figure it out, because that's what people on the tour buses, they go through there every day, and they're in awe about all the history that happened there, all the films that were made there. And to think that Warner Brothers respects its past so much, they've not only kept their backlot intact and never tore it down like other studios had, but they created the studio tour. They created an archive. They created a museum. Created the museum to house all their precious props and costumes and memorabilia from these movies that you couldn't pay to auction any of these things off. They're way too pricey, right? And then the way they preserve their films, firsthand preservation down to the detail. I've seen those folks in those offices working on frame by frame and the level of detail to preserve Casablanca or Giant or any of these movies. It's not cheap, it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's laborious, it's frame by frame by frame. That's very, very I commend that very much. And as has Scorsese and Chris Nolan and other directors speak to that, of just how great Warner Brothers is preserving their legacy.
I'm dying to go. I've never been. I mean, I've been to the Harry Potter studios in London, so there's that. You know, one line that always comes to mind when we think of one of those from the Maltese Falcon. The stuff that dreams are made of. What does that represent to you? What is the dream, the goal you have when you make such a big documentary? And what's the dream that inhabitates you when you think of the Warner Bros. Legacy?
Well, the whole, as David Zaslav says in the first special, all of this is the stuff that dreams are made of. I mean, movie making is a magical ambition. It's a magical craft. It's a lot of hard work. It's painful. There's long hours. There's a lot to it that's not magical at all. But there's something, I mean, just in the making of this film, it was a very challenging film for time schedule, for scope, everything, right? But to be here to watch it in front of an audience, that's the magic that you get at the end of the day. That's the gift. And then ultimately the impact that it has on people. So I've seen that through all these films that I've watched of Warner Brothers. It's just thinking about every film you watch, what went on behind the scenes, what are the stories behind those, behind those images. How did that scene happen? How did that story come to pass? Kevin Costner even said to me, when you walk through the halls of Warner Brothers on the back lot, all the halls are lined with these movie posters or these scenes from these films, and you just kind of want to know what happened. Like, how did they get made? How did that scene happen? And every movie has a story. Every scene has a story. And it was really fun to talk to over 60 actors, directors, producers, writers, on showrunners, on how they did what they did. It was great. It was ultimate film lesson for a film geek like me.
Exactly, but that was actually my next question, because the Warner Brothers is a studio that made movie stars. Really, it's not just about movies. They actually made movie stars, people who got their first big break at the Warner Brothers. Not just iconic characters, real movie stars. How important for you was it to be able to speak with so many filmmakers? Obviously, you got Martin Scorsese and actors who worked with Warner Bros. When you made the documentary. How important was that for you to get everyone's point of view?
It was very exciting. You'd get these emails. Well, we kind of drafted the list of everybody we want. We couldn't get everybody, of course, but when you get the email from our casting producer, Julie Zan, who would say, Kevin Costner says yes, or Martin Scorsese says yes, you're just doing a little happy dance because you're just thrilled because you want to hear their stories so much. And as we went through the show and started interviewing more and more people, I mean, obviously there's segmented interviews that are specific to that film or whatever, but then there's connective tissue questions that are across the whole studio and the more emotional, real first person events or things that happen that are less specific. And, those start to build on each other. And then you end up relating to, like, I could relate to George Clooney because I had already interviewed Clint and I knew things that Clint had said. And so they start building on each other, and then you just feel like you're part of this big family, Wow. And I just have to say that there's so much left on the cutting room floor that it was painful to, to go through the transcripts, highlight the bites that I want, and then know that only 2 or 3 are going to make it, So I hope that the rest of the content in these interviews can somehow see the light of day. There's so much more. There's so much more to be told, but I was happy to have 4 episodes or 4 specials in 4 hours. And it's I think it feels entertaining because the subject matter is entertaining,
Exactly. And everybody's got a different perspective, because movie making is a very singular, unique thing to do, and nobody's got the same experience.
Right, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me today, giving me the wrap. Leslie, congratulations. I wish you the best of luck at Cannes. Enjoy the sun, enjoy everything.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Great question.